Neil Ratner Rock Doc with a story on this snowy Thursday in Woodstock. So, today is February 9th, and I don't know how many of you know that February 9th is a very important day in the history of rock and roll. Because on Sunday night, February 9th, 1974, over 73 million Americans got their first real taste of the Beatles when they appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. And we all know how many rock stars and just plain rock and rollers were influenced by that program. Although Sullivan was the first American TV host to book the Beatles, he wasn't the first to broadcast them. Now, late night wars went on way back when, before the days of Carson and Leno and Letterman, when you had people like Jack Paar and Ed Sullivan. Now, Jack Paar had seen the Beatles perform at the Royal Variety Show in London in November, and he went and bought the film of their performance from the BBC. Brian Epstein, the Beatles' manager, was furious at the BBC for selling the show to a rival of Ed Sullivan, knowing that he had booked them, or was getting ready to book them on Sullivan. And he was very worried about Sullivan's reaction, and he was right. Paar showed the film about a month before they were scheduled to appear on Sullivan, and Ed went nuts. He actually made the call to cancel the group's appearance, but a few days later, cooler heads prevailed, and it was agreed that they would go on Sullivan as originally planned. After all, Paar had shown a film of them. Sullivan was going to have them live. So Ed Sullivan first heard about the Beatles in October of '63, when just by coincidence, he happened to be at London's airport when the Beatles were returning from a tour of Sweden. And although it was a very rainy day, more than 3,000 fans had gathered. Ed had no idea what was going on. He asked, "What's the commotion all about?" And he was told it was for the Beatles. And his response was, "Who the hell are the Beatles?" When he was told they were a new pop group, he became very interested. When he got back to America, he told his talent coordinator to negotiate a deal for them to appear on his show. So all was agreed. They would go on a show live February 9th in New York, and then a week later, they would do a special live remote performance from the Deauville Hotel in Miami. Ed was satisfied with the deal and didn't think much about the Beatles until on December 10th, 1963, he was watching the evening news with Walter Cronkite, and lo and behold, a 4-minute story on the Beatles came on. As soon as the program ended, Sullivan called Cronkite to ask him about the Bugs, or whatever they were called. Ed often had a problem with names. And the Beatles were still virtually unknown in America, and Sullivan was incredibly impressed that Walter Cronkite found the story newsworthy. And the Beatles on Sullivan, so Capitol Records made sure that all the local TV and radio stations around the New York area had the Beatles' itinerary, and their arrival on February 7th was covered by all the major networks, including CBS and Walter Cronkite. So as they exited the plane, Cronkite stated, "The British invasion this time goes by the code name Beatlemania. D-Day has been common knowledge for months, and this was the day. The invasion took place at New York's Kennedy International Airport. And that's the way it is. Friday, February 7th, 1964. And that's the way it was. And 48 hours later, you hear the girls screaming, all of us gathered around the television sets to see the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. And you know what? America would never be the same. This time, I wanna hold your hand. That's my story. Hope you enjoyed it. Neil Ratner Rock Doc. Have a great day. See you soon. See you soon.